You build a time machine. You go back to before your grandfather met your grandmother. You kill him. He never has children. Your parent is never born, which means you're never born, which means you never built the time machine, which means you never went back, which means your grandfather lived, which means you were born, which means you did go back, which means you killed him, which means you weren't born. The loop is infinite. Cause and effect eat themselves. Logic collapses. This is the grandfather paradox, and it doesn't have a solution. It has implications. Time travel breaks causality, not just in science fiction, in logic itself. If you can go back and change the past, you create situations where effects precede causes, where events both happen and don't happen, where your existence is both real and impossible simultaneously. The universe doesn't allow contradictions, but time travel creates them. So either time travel is impossible, or the universe has mechanisms that prevent paradoxes, mechanisms we don't understand and can't test because we can't time travel. Or maybe time travel is possible, but your actions don't change your timeline. They create a new one. You kill your grandfather in a parallel universe, and that version of you is never born. But you, the time traveler, still exist in your original timeline, unaffected. That solves the paradox, but it also means nothing you do in the past matters to your present. You can't save anyone. You can't fix anything. You just create branching realities where your actions have consequences you'll never see. The causality breakdown where cause and effect collapse into logical impossibility. The universe's self-defense, where paradoxes might be prevented by mechanisms we can't perceive, and the multiple timeline trap where solving the paradox destroys the meaning of changing the past. Subscribe to that stoic stick because we don't resolve paradoxes. We show you why they unravel everything. Let's talk about the grandfather paradox and why time travel might be logically impossible. Causality is simple. Cause comes before effect. You drop a glass, it breaks. You flip a switch, the light turns on. Cause gives effect. Time moves forward. Events happen in sequence. This is how reality works. But time travel destroys this. If you can go back, effects can precede their causes. You can create situations where the effect prevents the cause. And when cause and effect contradict, logic collapses. Reality stops making sense. Here's the breakdown. You exist. That's the effect. The cause is your grandfather meeting your grandmother, having children, one of whom is your parent, who then has you. Remove any link in that causal chain and you don't exist. So you go back and kill your grandfather before he reproduces. You've removed a necessary cause of your existence, which means the effect. You can't exist. But if you don't exist, you can't go back in time, which means you didn't kill your grandfather, which means he lived, which means you do exist, which means you can go back, which means you do kill him. The loop is infinite. Each resolution creates the contradiction it was supposed to solve. This isn't a problem you can think your way out of. It's a logical impossibility. In formal logic, this is called a contradiction, a statement that's both true and false simultaneously. I exist and I don't exist. Both are true in the grandfather paradox. and contradictions break logic. If something can be both true and false, then anything can be true. Logic requires consistency. Contradictions destroy consistency. So the grandfather paradox isn't just weird. It's a fundamental breakdown of rational thought. You can't fix this by being careful. What if I just wound my grandfather instead of killing him? Doesn't matter. Any change that prevents your birth creates the same loop. You exist, so you go back and change something that prevents your existence, which means you don't exist, which means you didn't go back, which means you do exist. The paradox isn't about the severity of the action. It's about causality itself. You're trying to eliminate your own cause, and that's logically impossible. Some people say, what if the timeline is fixed? You go back, but you can't actually change anything because it already happened. That's determinism. And it doesn't solve the paradox. It just makes time travel pointless. If you can't change the past, then going back accomplishes nothing. You're just an observer. And if you try to kill your grandfather, something stops you. You miss. The gun jams. Someone intervenes. Not because of luck, because the timeline won't allow the paradox. But that raises a new question. What mechanism prevents you? If the universe can stop paradoxes, how? And why would physics care about logical consistency? The causality breakdown reveals that time travel isn't just technologically impossible. It might be logically impossible. The Novikov self-consistency principle suggests that paradoxes are impossible because the universe is mathematically incapable of self-contradiction. If you travel to the past, you do not arrive in a new history. You simply fulfill the one that already exists. You were always there, and your actions were always a part of the timeline. In this framework, the universe acts as a self-correcting system. If you attempt to kill your grandfather, you will fail not because of random bad luck, but because of global constraints. The gun jams, you slip, or you simply miss. Much like how gravity prevents you from floating away, the principle of consistency prevents you from enacting a logical impossibility. Some physicists explain this through quantum probability, suggesting that in a path integral formulation, the only histories that have a non-zero probability of occurring are those that are self-consistent. Any action that would lead to a paradox has a probability of exactly zero. It isn't just unlikely, it is physically disallowed. The existential dread of this principle lies in the loss of agency. If the universe requires consistency, your choices are merely the only available paths that don't break reality. You aren't choosing to pull the trigger. You are following a causal loop that has always existed. You may feel you're struggling against fate, but that struggle was recorded in history before you were even born. This creates scenarios like the bootstrap paradox, where information or objects have no clear origin. An inventor might travel back to give their younger self the blueprints for a time machine, meaning the information exists in a permanent circle, caused by itself and emerging from nothing. If you try to force a paradox, some theories suggest a quantum freeze, where the laws of physics render your neurons unable to fire in a way that would trigger a contradiction. Others posit that the universe might simply dispose of the anomaly. If your continued existence becomes a logical impossibility, the most consistent outcome might be your sudden cessation. This suggests that if time travel is possible, it is either incredibly boring or incredibly terrifying. You can go back to watch the Great Fire of Rome, but if history says you didn't put it out, then no matter how much water you carry, you will never reach the flames. You are a passenger in a universe that prioritizes logic over your autonomy. The theory that branching timelines solve the grandfather paradox is not a solution. It is a profound existential trap. While it technically resolves the logical contradiction of your existence by creating a new reality where your grandfather dies, it renders the act of time travel emotionally and practically futile. In a branching model, you cannot actually fix your own history. If you travel back to prevent a tragedy, you succeed only in a newly created universe. In your original timeline, the one containing your grief, your loved ones, and your reasons for leaving the tragedy remains untouched. You haven't saved anyone. You have merely created a copy of the world where they happen to be alive, leaving your home reality to continue suffering in your absence. This mechanic turns the time traveler into a cosmic ghost. By changing the past, you create a world where the local version of you never has a reason to invent time travel. You become an anomaly from a timeline that no longer connects to the one you are standing in, trapped in a better world that isn't yours while your true home remains broken. Furthermore, if every action simply spawns a new branch, then every possible outcome already exists somewhere in the multiverse. This leads to a profound sense of existential isolation where choice is an illusion. Your actions do not determine what happens. They only determine which branch you are currently observing. Universal significance vanishes because if there is a timeline where you are a hero and a timeline where you are a villain, no single action carries moral weight since the opposite is also happening elsewhere. You are no longer a participant in history. You are just a passenger switching tracks. The true horror of this solution is that time travel becomes the loneliest act imaginable, an act of permanent self-exile. You can architect 1,000 utopias, but you are forever barred from inhabiting them as a rightful resident. You remain a phantom of the original timeline, the one where everything went wrong and nothing can ever be changed. A paradox, for all its logical mésages, at least implies that your life has the power to impact the fabric of reality. Branching timelines suggest that you and your choices ultimately do not matter. You are not changing history. You are just creating new versions of it that you will never truly belong to. The grandfather paradox reveals that time travel breaks logic as much as physics, whether through a causality loop that collapses cause and effect, or the multiple timeline trap, where changes only exist in parallel realities you can't inhabit. The result is the same. The past remains untouchable. If you fix a tragedy in a new branch, your original home remains broken. If the universe self-corrects to prevent paradoxes, your free will is an illusion. The true paradox might be the desire to change the past at all. That desire is caused by the very history you wish to erase. If you succeeded, you would eliminate the motivation that sent you back, ensuring you never leave, and the past stays the same. You are trapped not in time, but in a logical circle. Ultimately, causality may be the one law the universe refuses to break to keep reality from collapsing. You can't change your history. You can only create versions of it where you no longer belong.